what it is. It's really what it is. Yeah. New Nipsey Hussle, check me out. You in trouble, check me out. Paying now, check me out. Pay me double, check me out. New Nipsey Hussle, check me out. New Nipsey Hussle, check me out.
Yeah, what's going on? What's going on? Top of the morning, folks. Top of the morning to everyone. I hope everybody's having a blessed and beautiful day. Oh, man. Had an amazing week of football, week 11. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. This is the breakdown. X's and O's with Nate Ness. I'm your host, Nate Ness. And man, week 11. I mean, I don't know what more to say, but wow. Just this whole season has been so competitive, so entertaining, so much showmanship on the field, so much competitiveness, so much good football. You know what? Just situational football, whatever it is that you are like and admire about the game, you're seeing it on display week in and week out. So, I know I've said this time and time before. Anything can happen on any given Sunday. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. Let's start off this day at Highmark Stadium, where the Buffalo Bills host the Indianapolis Colts. Now, this is one of those anything can happen on any given Sunday type games. And let me just say this. The Colts were just dominant. They were just dominant on the day. I mean, Carson Wentz was not really a big factor in the game, passing for 11 for 20 for 106 yards and one touchdown. But this game really, in essence, in its totality, was about a rushing attack. And Jonathan Taylor had a monster game, rushing 32 times for 185 yards, 4 touchdowns, while also having 3 receptions for 19 yards and another touchdown in the air. And he accounted for 5 touchdowns on the ground. Like, he had a dominating day. And it's just amazing that this guy continues to produce, and he's producing it, and the Colts are using him in all areas and all facets of the game. He's helping the Colts, especially Carson Wentz, and not putting too much on his shoulders. Coach Frank Reich is calling great games and just really, game planning and utilizing him and his potential, and his strengths to the fullest. I mean, again, a dominating game by him today. And, he dominated the Bills defense in a big way. And this Bills defense, it's a good defense. But the Bills, on the other hand, another rough day for Josh Allen. He's had, some weeks where it's just like, games that I know he wish he can forget. And yesterday was no different. 21 for 35 for 209 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I mean, the team in general was off. The Bills couldn't really establish any type of running game, seeing that, they fell behind early 14-0. And the team rushed for 91 yards. Now, that's not going to cut it. Not for where the Bills are trying to go. What this team is built. This team is built to make some noise in the playoffs and whatnot. But right now, they got to find their identity right now because they're not playing Bills football. Stephon Diggs had 2 touchdown receptions, but again, the Bills offense, they struggled. And I don't want to say that teams have figured them out, but in a way, teams have kind of figured out a way to stop this high-powered offense and really just bring them back down. We're not accustomed to seeing this, but they turned the ball over 4 times. And, again, this was anything can happen on any given Sunday game, and the Colts showed that and dominated 41-15. All right, next stop to Lincoln Financial Field, where the Philadelphia Eagles are hosting the New Orleans Saints. Now, this was a good game. Philly jumped out early, 14-0 on the Saints. And Trevor Siemian, he had an up-and-down game, going 22 for 40 for 214 yards, 3 touchdowns, but he also had 2 interceptions. He also had 1 rushing touchdown. But, again, this game right here, kind of different. The Saints were without Alvin Kamara for a second straight week. And when you don't have Kamara, that takes away from, the dynamic of your offense. Being able to flex him out against the linebackers and safeties and him catching the ball and just being able to, run the ball. He does so many things for this offense. Without him, that takes away an element. Now, don't get me wrong. Mark Ingram, he had a very, very, very good game. 16 carries for 88 yards. And he made some really good, tough runs. But it's just, again, when you have Kamara and with him and Ingram, they add that thunder and lightning, that different type of 1-2 punch that complements each other on the football field. So hopefully Alvin can get healthy and come back and just really get back to doing what he does. Marquez Callaway and Adam Troutman, they both had receiving touchdowns. But again, this Eagles team, I mean, they win, and they win. It's unconventional, but the moral to the story is that they win. You know, that's what it's all about, winning. You know, no matter how you do it, just win, baby, win. You know, Jalen Hurts wasn't really a big factor. You know, going 13 for 24 for 147 yards, but where he made his hay was rushing the ball. He rushed the ball 18 times for 69 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. And this Eagles team, rushed for 242 yards, with Miles Sanders leading the way with 16 carries for 94 yards. Jordan Howard also had 10 carries for 63 yards. And I mean, just great production on the ground. You know, great production on the ground. You know, you didn't really have to pass the ball. I mean, Dallas Goedert, he led the team in receiving with 5 receptions for 62 yards, and Devontae Smith had 4 for 61. But it's not much there, especially if you can run the ball and dominate the line of scrimmage. You know, but again, for the second consecutive week, the Eagles scored on defense. Cornerback Darius Slay, hey, big play Slay, what's up, baby? He scores a touchdown on defense, and the Eagles cruise to a big victory and stay in the NFC playoff hunt, 40-29. All right, to MetLife Stadium we go now, where we have an AFC East showdown between the Miami Dolphins and the New York Jets. Now, a lot of people may not agree with me in what I'm about to say, but it's okay. It's my opinion. I feel that Tua is a franchise quarterback for the Dolphins. He's a franchise quarterback, and they finally found him after years and years of swinging and missing on so many different prospects and so many different players. I feel Tua is the guy. He just needs an opportunity. He needs, you know, a line that can protect him, and he needs the weapons and pieces around him for him to be successful. Give him an opportunity to really have a chance to succeed. You know, he started the game and played a pretty good game. You know, 27-33 for 273 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. And the Dolphins were able to do something that I have been stressing for weeks, and that's establish somewhat of a running game, with Myles Gaskin leading the way with 23 carries for 89 yards and 1 reception touchdown. Jalen Waddle had a rushing touchdown, and Mac Hollins led the Dolphins in receiving with 2 receptions for 72 yards and 1 touchdown. Now, the Dolphins have had a rough season, but you know what? They played pretty good, and they played consistent. Like the last couple of weeks, they played some really good football. Now, Joe Flacco was making his first start for the Jets. You know, he hasn't started a game in about well over a year, 2 seasons, excuse me. But you know what? He had a good game for the most part. Now, the Jets, again, are without Zach Wilson, their number 2 overall draft pick in this year's draft. And what Coach Robert Saleh is looking for from the quarterback position is somebody with, the veteran leadership, that won't make the I guess you could say the rookie mistakes, that won't make the naive mistakes, just to play the game and just hold on to the ball, protect the ball, don't take unnecessary shots. Just play the game smart from the quarterback position. And Joe had a good game, going 24 for 39 for 291 yards and 2 touchdowns. Michael Carter led the ground game with 9 carries for 63 yards. And Elijah Moore had a big game, a very, very huge and productive game with 8 receptions for 141 yards and 1 receiving touchdown. Jameson Crowder also had 6 receptions for 44 yards and 1 receiving touchdown. But this Dolphins team, again, as I said before, they've had a rough season, but they've strung together some really consistent and good weeks of football, and they pull out a really, really good game, or pull out a big win, 24-17. All right. Now, this right here was my favorite game of the day. This is my favorite game of the day. I must say so. To Bank of America Stadium, where we go, where the Panthers welcome home Cam Newton, who started for the Panthers Offense. This was such a great game. They host the Washington football team, but Carolina's also welcoming Coach Ron Rivera, who is the winningest coach in Panthers history, and Taylor Heineke. Now, this game was just a great game. You got great quarterback play from both teams, exciting and amazing. I mean, Taylor Heineke, what more can I say about this guy? This guy's a gamer. I love his confidence. I love his competitiveness. I love the gunslinger mentality that he has. Sometimes it can get him in trouble, but yesterday, he went out there. He was poised. He had so much heart. He had so much emotion out there playing. He reminded me of a younger Brett Favre in his heyday. And man, he was spectacular. 16 for 22 for 206 yards, 3 touchdowns. And the Washington football team was able to do something that hasn't been done on this Carolina defense, the number 2 ranked defense in the NFL, and that's establish a running game. As a team, they rushed for 180 yards, with Antonio Gibson leading the way with 19 carries for 95 yards. And you know what? Terry McLaurin, man, this guy gets overshadowed. This guy is just an amazing receiver. He just gets better and better and better week in and week out. But you got other receivers that kind of like, that kind of, I guess you could say like overshadow his production. But he is a good receiver for this Washington football team. Another big game for him, for 5 receptions for 103 yards and 1 touchdown. DeAndre Carter and Cam Sims, they both have receiving touchdowns. But on the other side of the ball, just as much as I'm complimenting the Washington football team and their preparation and how they went out there and played, I got to give that same compliment to Cam. And he was just amazing. He looked like the 2015 NFL MVP Cam. Finishing the game 21 for 27 for 189 yards, 2 touchdowns, 10 carries for 46 yards, and 1 touchdown. Man, looking like going back to MVP form and looked good. He provided a boost and a spark to this team. Now, a while back, 2 weeks ago, I said Christian McCaffrey, with the addition of bringing Cam back, what that can do, it can help him. It can open up some things for Christian McCaffrey. And he had a great game yesterday, a good game yesterday. And 10 carries, 59 yards, and 7 receptions for 60 yards and 1 touchdown. But I stand by that statement that I said, with Cam being back, that's just going to open up things. That's going to open up things for him to really pick and just really showcase that dynamic ability that he has. And again, I enjoy watching him get better and better. DJ Moore had 5 receptions for 50 yards and 1 touchdown. But this was a game that I kind of wish didn't have to end, because it was a great game of going back and forth. It was a true chess match between the Panthers and the Washington football team. But again, Washington came in, they made the plays, the necessary plays to get the victory, and they win a big game, 27-21. All right, now we're going to go ahead and head over to First Energy Stadium with the Detroit Lions, winless Detroit Lions. They go take on the Cleveland Browns and searching for the first victory. Now, the Lions were without starting quarterback Jared Goff, so 4-year pro Tim Boyle starts. And I might say he had a rough day, extremely rough day. Going 15 for 23 for just 77 yards and 2 interceptions. But you know what? He had a rough day, but the Lions got great production from the running backs. And when I say running backs, I mean DeAndre Swift, who finished the game with 14 carries for 136 yards and was really the only bright spot for the Lions team. Now, the Browns on the other side, they weren't hot. They really weren't. They struggled. They struggled in a bit. Baker Mayfield, against this Lions team, went 15 for 29 for 176 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. He struggled big time. But honestly, we know that the bread and butter, the heartbeat of this team is the running game. And Nick Chubb produced a great game, rushing the ball 22 times for 130 yards and 1 reception touchdown. Jarvis Landry had a 16-yard rushing touchdown, and Austin Hooper led the Browns with 4 receptions for 53 yards. And the Browns were able to escape this game with a victory, 13-10. Man. All right. Now let's go ahead and head over to TIAA Bank Stadium. Well, the San Francisco 49ers, they travel southeast to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, the 49ers are fresh off a big victory over the Rams and continued where they left off last week. They've been playing some solid football, some good football, and they're peaking at the right time and getting it together, getting the running game going, really just, doing what they do best, and just utilizing the abilities and their strengths. Jimmy Garoppolo was quiet, but he was decent, 16 for 22 for 176 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, wide receiver Deebo Samuels, who is like really the do-it-all player for the San Francisco 49ers, he led them in rushing with 8 carries for 79 yards and 1 touchdown. Brandon Ayuk had 7 receptions and 85 yards, 1 receiving touchdown, and George Kittle had 4 receptions, 34 yards, and 1 receiving touchdown to lead the team in receivings. But the Jags, on the other hand, you know what? They just really couldn't get anything going. Trevor Lawrence, 16 for 25 for 158 yards. Not much there from him. Couldn't really get no sustainability on offense, no chemistry, no rhythm on offense. James Robinson was quiet too. 12 carries, 29 yards. He did have a rushing touchdown, but again, this wasn't a solid day for this Jaguars offense. Marvin Jones had 4 receptions for 52 yards, and Laviska Shenault were the only receivers to have over 50 yards on the day. But this is about the 49ers playing their game, playing their type of game, winning and staying in that NFC playoff picture, and they win a big game. All right. To Nissan Stadium. All right. Where the Tennessee Titans host the Houston Texans in the AFC South Showdown. Now, this is the second anything can happen on any given Sunday game. And You know what? Not to like, mince words, or not to even like, let's just keep it straight. Let's keep it 100. The Houston Texans, they've struggled this season. They've struggled. They've had a lot of unfortunate mishaps. I mean, missing the quarterback for a good part of the season, not getting like, nobody stepping up and making plays on the offensive side and on the defensive side consistently. I mean, yet on this Sunday, they did what they needed. Tyrod Taylor wasn't lights out, was relatively quiet in the pocket, 14 to 24 for 107 yards, but he made his noise on the ground running the ball. 6 carries, 28 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Chris Conley was the high man for the Texans with 37 yards receiving. But this game, this was about the Texans defense, and the Texans defense stood up and stood tall, recording 2 sacks and 4 interceptions. Ryan Tannehill, he had a game to forget, to be honest with you. I mean, I know he had a game to forget. 35 for 52 for 323 yards, 1 touchdown, 4 interceptions. Now, I know that they don't have Derrick Henry, so more is going to be asked of Ryan Tannehill. A good portion of your offense is on IR. And with that being said, you're not being able to rush the ball to really, do what you do best. That's your identity. That's Tennessee's identity. Being able to rush the ball, bring that 8th man into the box, then being able to use their play action and hitting their receivers. But again, they become one-dimensional. Teams aren't having to load the box to stop their run. Derrick Henry, he's hurt, so they don't have anybody that can really, go ahead and take off, and just really get that rushing game going, But again, they kind of got to change their approach to the game now, in their game plan. Adrian Peterson, he led the Titans on the ground with 9 carries for 40 yards. And Nick Westbrook, he led the Titans with 7 receptions for 107 yards receiving. Dez Fitzpatrick had a reception touchdown, but the Titans turned the ball over 5 times. And to the underdog Texans, man, they stood up and they get a big win, unexpected win, but they get a big win, 22-13. All right, I'm going to head over to US Bank Stadium where we have a big NFC North matchup. Now, these games, being that I played in the NFC North, these games between the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings have become very competitive. Interesting. And this game was no different. The Packers were great on the day. I mean, again, Aaron Rodgers, 23 for 33, 385 yards, 4 touchdowns. I mean, the discount double check, that Aaron Price, whatever you want to call him, he was big time. A.J. Dillon led the ground game with 11 carries for 53 yards. But, I mean, let's talk about these Packers receivers. These guys are talented, and these guys can play. Marquez Valdez-Scantling had 4 receptions for 123 yards and 1 touchdown. And that bad man, Devontae Adams had 7 receptions for 115 and 2 touchdowns. They got off, and they couldn't be contained on the day. But as I talk about the Packers, I got to talk about the Vikings. The Vikings were just as good, and they played amazing. Kirk Cousins was lights out. I mean, his numbers were really good. 24 for 35 for 341 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And Dalvin Cook had a solid showing and some good production. 22 carries for 86 yards and 1 touchdown. Now, these Vikings receivers, as I speak highly of the Packers receivers, these Vikings receivers, these guys can play. I mean, Justin Jefferson, who I believe is going to be the #1 receiver in the league for years to come, had a great game. 8 receptions for 169 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Adam Thielen had 8 for 82 and 1 touchdown. But again, this is another chapter to this Packer-Vikings rivalry. But the Vikings take this first matchup, 34-31, and win a game off of Greg Joseph game-winning field goal. And they stay in that hunt. I mean, these games between these teams, oh my gosh, you're going to see some exciting play on offense. You're going to see some really exciting play. All right, to Soldier Field, where the Bears host the Baltimore Ravens. And the Bears, oh man, again, this is one of those situations where, the good team, just unfortunate breaks. A really good team, just unfortunate breaks. I mean, their record doesn't speak for the talent that's on this team, but again, they're a good team. The Ravens, they were without their MVP Lamar Jackson, who was out due to an illness, not COVID related, but he was under the weather. So 2nd-year pro Tyler Huntley was under center, and for him to be starting his first game, he made mistakes, yet he played well enough to win. He finished the game 26 for 36 for 219 yards and 1 interception, but also carrying the ball 7 times for 40 yards. Devontae Freeman led the Ravens on the ground with 16 carries, 49 yards, and 1 touchdown. And Mark Andrews was the leading receiver with 8 receptions for 73 yards. Now, Justin Fields, he was knocked out of the game with a rib injury, So, before he exited, he was 4 of 11 for 79 yards. So in comes Andy Dalton, who had a pretty good showing. 11 for 23 for 201 yards and 2 touchdowns. David Montgomery had 14 carries for 58 yards. Receivers, Darnell Mooney, 5 receptions, 121, and a 1 touchdown. And Marquise Goodwin, 4 receptions for 104 and 1 touchdown. They had big games, and they battled hard. Despite a solid showing from the Bears defense, the Ravens were able to come out with a big victory while missing their MVP quarterback, 16-13. All right, we're going to go over to Allegiant Stadium, to the city that never sleeps, where the Las Vegas Raiders host the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, this was a game up until the fourth quarter. Started off slow, but got rolling in that final quarter. Now, Joe wasn't spectacular for Cincinnati, but he finished the game 20 for 29, 148 yards, 1 touchdown. Joe Mixon had the big game though, and really got the Bengals offense going, rushing the ball 30 times for 123 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Solid production on the ground for this guy, who has really been a bright spot for this team. Tyler Boyd led the Bengals with 6 receptions for 49 yards, and rookie Jamar Chase had another reception touchdown, bringing his season total to 8. Now on the other side of the ball, Derek Carr and the Raiders just couldn't make the necessary plays on offense. He finished the game 19 for 27 for 215 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The Raiders' rushing attack was really non-existent. Josh Jacobs was a high man on the ground, though, with 9 carries for 37 yards. And Darren Waller, he had himself a game, 7 receptions for 116 yards. But this was really the only positive for the Raiders was Darren Waller. And they struggled. This Raider offense struggled. The Bengals come into town and get a huge win and stay in the mix for postseason, 32-13. All right. To the 12th man, Lumen Stadium, for this important NFC West matchup between the Arizona Cardinals and the visiting Seattle Seahawks. Now, the Cards were without K1, Kyler Murray, for the 3rd straight game. So Colt McCoy was starting. Now, if I may say this, Colt McCoy is filled in for Kyler Murray admirably. And on Sunday was no different. He played within the offensive game plan, played within the scheme. He let the game come to him, and he didn't try to force it. You know what? He finished the game with 35 for 44 for 328 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now, those are some pretty impressive numbers. James Conner added 21 carries for 62 yards and 1 touchdown. And I must say, if we're going to talk about trades that have occurred this year, I have to say that the trade for Zach Ertz has provided big time. Zach looks refreshed to be playing for a team that's playing for something. He finished the game 8 receptions, 88 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. Now, Russell Wilson on the other side, he's in the second game back from returning from IR, and he's still trying to, find his footing and his rhythm, and he's not there yet. He finished the game 14 for 26 with 207 yards. DJ Dallas had a rushing touchdown for the offense, for this offense that's really been struggling. Like, this Seahawk offense has struggled, and like right now, don't even really know their identity right now, for the past couple weeks. Tyler Lockett, he had a nice game, 4 receptions for 115 yards, but, what's really happening in Seattle right now, it's like they're in between the rock and the hard place. They're trying to they got to figure it out on offense. And it's like, this is not what we're accustomed to seeing from Seattle. And they aren't looking like the contenders that they were pegged to be at the beginning of the season. And they drop another game at home to the Cardinals, who sport the NFL's best record, 23-13. Now, all right, to the loudest stadium in the world. Yes, we're going to Kansas City, where the Kansas City Chiefs hold the Dallas Cowboys. Now, this is a big matchup. Big matchup. Now Kansas City has been playing very well, getting the defense to play better and getting the offense to be better at ball security. Dallas, though, has been playing solid football, but it's struggling on offense. Dak Prescott, he had a rough game. 28 for 43 for 216 yards, 2 interceptions. He was pressured for much of the game by that Kansas City defensive line. Zeke wasn't really himself either, and he couldn't get a running game going because he hurt his knee, ankle, and he finished the game with 9 carries for 32 yards. And Tony Pollard finished the game with 7 carries for 50 yards. And Dallas couldn't really get the ground game going. I mean, again, for Dallas, they have great running backs, they have great receivers, they have a great offense, but these tools, these stars the game plan. It goes hand in hand. You establish yourself with the run, then with the run, you open up the big play with the pass. And you know what? They couldn't really get anything going in the pass because they missed Amari Cooper, who was going to miss the next 2 games due to COVID. But Dallas Schultz was the high man, with 6 receptions, 53 yards. And CeeDee Lamb was really not much a factor due to the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs were doubling him for the majority of the game. Now, Patrick Mahomes, he didn't have a big Patrick Mahomes' type night. Finished the game 23 for 37 for 260 yards and one interception. Again, he didn't have like his big numbers, but again, you win. A win is a win. That's all that matters is winning. But the Chiefs did welcome back Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and he had a great game in his first game back. 12 carries for 63 yards, 1 touchdown. And Travis Kelce had a rushing touchdown as well. Now, Tyreek Hill led the receivers with 9 receptions for 77 yards, and Travis Kelce had 5 for 74. But the Chiefs' defense, they showed up in a big way, with Chris Jones leading the way with 3.5 sacks. And the Chiefs won a big game, and they've won 4 in a row since starting the season, 3-4, 19-9. All right. Now, I know the Washington football team and Carolina game, that was my favorite game because welcoming Cam back. But this arguably was the most exciting game of the day, and that's Sunday Night Football. It's a SoFi Stadium where the LA Chargers host the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I'm going to say this. This is a game about resiliency, about heart, grit, and just pure competitiveness. And the Steelers were down big heading into the fourth quarter, yet they showed a lot of character. Ben Roethlisberger played probably his best game of the season, going 28 for 44 with 273 yards and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And he made some plays down the stretch. Najee Harris didn't have the big game, but still made some noise with 12 carries for 39 yards and 1 touchdown on the ground. Deontay Johnson led the way in the receiving category with 7 receptions for 101 yards and 1 touchdown. Eric Ebron and Pat Freiermuth both had receiving touchdowns. But on the other side, Justin Herbert, he had a solid night. Looked good in the pocket. He's had a couple of weeks where he struggled, but again he's been consistent this year. He finished the game 30 for 41 for 382 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, while also rushing the ball 9 times for 90 yards. Just solid production from Mr. Herbert. Yet the player of the game, in my opinion, Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler, this guy just produces and makes plays for this team in all areas. And I love seeing how the Chargers get him the ball, and he finished the game with 11 carries for 50 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, 6 receptions, 65 yards, and 2 touchdowns receiving. That's great production. That is amazing and great production that they're getting week in and week out. And he's been, he's been like the MVP of this team, in my opinion. He just goes out there week in and week out. He doesn't get talked about a lot, but he goes out there, he makes the plays, and he makes people talk about him. And I love how he competes. Now, Keenan Allen had 9 receptions for 112 yards. And, Keenan Allen's the best route runner in the game, in my opinion. This guy runs amazing routes, and he knows how to just get open. His skills in running routes is just, it's uncomparable. Mike Williams had a big game, 5 receptions for 97 yards and 1 touchdown. But man, when I say this game was exciting, Heading into the fourth quarter, the Steelers were down 17 points. But they started chipping it away, and they erupted for 27 points in the fourth quarter and got a big timely block punt from Miles Kilbrew to take the tie in the game. And Chris Boswell, he kicked a field goal to eventually take the lead. But this Chargers team came roaring back. And Justin Herbert made one of the most beautiful plays of the game. He connected with Mike Williams on a 53-yard game-winning touchdown to take the victory 41-37 in this thrilling Sunday Night Football game. Man, an amazing game. So, my final thoughts on the week 11. Oh, man, can't say enough. Solid football, solid competitive football. You got to appreciate it, you got to love it. I mean, me being a fan of the game, I love seeing guys going out there and just laying it out there on the line and just competing at a high level. Yet again, as I said before, we're later in the season. These games, they're important. Seeding, getting yourself prepared for postseason play, fighting to make the playoffs. These games are very important, so you're going to see people putting their best foot forward. So guys got to continue to stay in their playbooks, continue to get your mind, body, and self-prepared week in and week out. Go out there with your best foot forward. Give yourself a chance to compete at a high level and confidence for your team. Continue to work. I mean, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Everybody's going after the same thing. That's what makes it so great, because the guys guy that's in front of you, that's lined up right in front of you, he wants success. He wants what you want. So who's going to get it? I mean, who's going to win the individual one-on-one matchup? Who's going to make the game? But the big plays that separate yourselves. I mean, again, continue to get better. Continue to work at your craft. Continue to be students of the game, and continue to be consummate pros. But another great week. Thank you guys again for just hanging out with me. Thank you for your your support. Thank you for just again believing in me and just encouraging me on this journey. I mean, I thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart. And until we meet again, this is the Breakdown X's and O's with Nate Ness. Thank you. Everybody have a beautiful and amazing week. Chase your dreams. Remember, don't stay in the middle of the pack. Separate yourself. Set that bar high and continue to go ahead and go after your dreams and your goals. Never get content with where you're at. Always look for ways to get better. Everybody, God bless. Thank you.